Part 2 of Chapter 1 of Theo. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Chapter 1. Preparing for a Journey. Part 2. Theo said no more. A summons from the kitchen came to her just then. Pam was busy with the tea service, and the boys were hungry, so she must go and help. Pamela glanced up at her sharply as she entered, but she did not speak. She had borne disappointments often enough, and had lived over them to become seemingly a trifle callous to their bitterness in others, and, as I have said, she was prone to silence. But it may be that she was not so callous after all, for at least Theo fancied that her occasional speeches were less sharp, and certainly she uttered no reproof tonight. She was grave enough, however, and even more silent than usual, as she poured out the tea for the boys. A shadow of thoughtfulness rested on her thin, sharp face, and the faint, growing lines were almost deepened, but she did not snap, as the children called it, and Theo was thankful for the change. It was not late when the children went to bed, but it was very late when Pamela followed them, and when she went upstairs she was so preoccupied as to appear almost absent-minded. She went to her room and locked the door, after her usual fashion, but that she did not retire was evident to one pair of listening ears at least. In the adjoining bedroom, where the girls slept, Theo lay awake and could hear her every movement. She was walking to and fro, and the sounds of opening drawers and turned keys came through the wall every moment. Pamela had unaccountable secret ways, Joanna always said. Her room was a sanctuary which the boldest did not dare to violate lightly. There were closets and boxes there whose contents were reserved for her own eyes alone, and questions regarding them seldom met with any satisfactory answer. She was turning over these possessions tonight, Theo judged from the sounds proceeding from her chamber. To be truthful, Theo had some curiosity about the matter, though she never asked any questions. The innate delicacy which prompted her to reverence the forlorn aroma of long withered romance about the narrow life had restrained her. But tonight she was so wide awake, and Joanna and Ellen were so fast asleep, that every movement forcing itself upon her ear made her more wide awake still. The turning of keys and unlocking of drawers roused her to a whimsical meditative wonder. Poor Pam! What dead memories and coffined hopes was she bringing out to the dim light of her solitary candle? Was it possible that she ever cried over them a little when there was no one to see her relaxing mood? Poor Pam! Theo sighed again, and was just deciding to go to sleep, if possible, when she heard a door open, which was surely Pamela's, and feet crossing the narrow corridor, which was surely Pamela's own, and then a sharp yet soft tap on the door, and a voice which could have been no other than Pamela's under any possibility. "Theo," it said, "I want you for a short time. Get up." Theo was out upon the floor, and had opened the door in an instant, wider awake than ever. "Throw something over you," said Pamela in the dry tone that always sounded almost severe. "You will take cold if you don't. Put on a shawl or something, and come into my room." Theodora caught up a shawl, and, stepping across the landing, stood in the light, the flare of the candle making a queer, lovely picture of her. The shawl she had wrapped carelessly over her white night-dress was one of Lady Throckmorton's gracious gifts, and although it had been worn by every member of the family in succession, and was frayed, and torn, and forlorn enough in broad daylight, by the uncertain Rembrandt glare of the chamber candle, its gorgeous palm leaf pattern made a by no means unpicturesque or unbecoming drapery, in conjunction with the girl's grand, soft, un-English eyes, and equally un-English ebon hair. "Shut the door," said Pamela. "I want to speak to you." Theo turned to obey, wonderingly, but, as she did so, her eyes fell upon something which made her fairly start, and this something was nothing less than the contents of the opened boxes and closets. Some of said contents were revealed through raised lids, but some of them were lying upon the bed, and the sight of them made the girl catch her breath. She had never imagined such wealth, for it seemed quite like wealth to her. Where had it all come from? There were piles of pretty lace-trimmed garments, boxes of handkerchiefs, ribbons and laces, and actually a number of dresses, of whose existence she had never dreamed, dresses quaint enough in fashion, but still rich and elaborate. "Why, Pam!" she exclaimed. "Whose are they? Why have you never—" Pamela stopped her with an abrupt gesture. "They are mine," she said. "I have had them for years, ever since Mr. Brunwald died. They were to have been my bridal trousseau, and some of them were presents from Lady Throckmorton, who was very kind to me then. Of course you know well enough," with dry bitterness. "I should never have had them otherwise. I thought I would show them to you tonight, and offer them to you. They may be of use just now." She stopped and cleared her throat there, with an odd, strained sound, and before she went on she knelt down before one of the open trunks and began to turn over its contents. "I wish you to go to Lady Throckmorton's," she said, speaking without looking at the amazed young face at her side. "The life here is a weary one for a girl to lead, without any change, and the visit may be a good thing for you in many ways. My visit to Lady Throckmorton's would have made me a happy woman, if death had not come between me and my happiness. I know I'm not at fault in saying this to you. I mean it in a manner a girl can scarcely understand. I mean that I want to save you from the life you must lead if you do not go away from here." Her hands were trembling, her voice, cold and dry as it usually was, trembled too, and the moment she paused, the amazed picturesque young figure swooped down upon her as it were, falling upon its knees, flinging its white-robed arms about her, and burying her in an unexpected confusion of black hair and oriental shawl, showering upon her loving, passionate little caresses. For the first time in her life Theo was not secretly awed by her. "Why, Pam," she cried, the tears running down her cheeks. "Dear, old, generous Pamela, do you care for me so much, enough to make such a sacrifice? Oh, Pam, I'm only a girl, as you say, but I think that, because I am a girl, perhaps I understand a little. Do you think that I could let you make such a sacrifice? Do you think I could let you give them to me, the things that were to have belonged to poor dead Arthur's wife? Oh, my generous darling, poor dead Arthur and the poor young wife who died with him." For some time Pamela said nothing, but Theo felt the slender, worn form that her arms clasped so warmly tremble within them, and the bosom on which she had laid her loving, impassioned face throb strangely. But she spoke at length. "I will not say it is not a sacrifice," she said. "I should not speak truly if I did. I have never told you of these things before, and why I kept them, because such a life as ours does not make people understand one another very clearly. But tonight I remembered that I was a girl too once, though the time seems so far away, and it occurred to me that it was in my power to help you to a happier womanhood than mine has been. I shall not let you refuse the things. I offer them to you, and expect you to accept them, as they are offered, freely." Neither protest nor reasoning was of any avail. The elder sister meant what she said, with just the settled precision that demonstrated itself upon even the most trivial occasions. And Theo was fain to submit now, as she would have done in any smaller matter. "When the things are of no further use, you may return them to me," Pamela said, dryly as ever. "A little managing will make everything as good as new for you now. The fashion only needs to be changed, and we have ample material. There is a grey satin on the bed there that will make a very pretty dinner dress. Look at it, Theo." Theo rose from her knees with the tears scarcely dry in her eyes. She had never seen such dresses in Downport before. These things of Pamela's had only come from London the day of Arthur's death, and had never been opened for family inspection. Some motherly instinct, even in Mrs. North's managing economy, had held them sacred, and so they had rested. And now, in her girl's admiration of the thick, trailing folds of the soft grey satin, Theodora very naturally half forgot her tears. "Pamela," she said, timidly, "do you think I could make it with the train? I never did wear a train, you know, and there was such a quaint appeal in her mellow lighted eyes that Pamela perceptibly softened. "You shall have half a dozen trains if you want them," she said, and then, half falteringly, added, "Theo, there is something else. Come here." There was a little carven ebony box upon the dressing table, and she went to it and opened it. Upon the white velvet lining lay a pretty set of jewels, sapphires, rarely pellucid, then clear pendants, sparkling like drops of deep sea water frozen into coruscant solidity. "They were one of Mr. Brunewald's bridal gifts to me," she said, scarcely heeding Theo's low cry of admiration. "I should have worn them upon my wedding day. You are not so careless as most girls, Theodora, and so I will trust them to you. Hold up your arm and let me clasp one of the bracelets on it. You have a pretty arm, Theo." It was a pretty arm, in truth, and the flashing rose tinted pendant set it off to a great advantage. Theo, herself, scarcely dared to believe her senses. Her wildest dreams had never pictured anything so beautiful as these pretty, modest sapphires. Was it possible that she was to wear them? The whole set of earrings, necklace, bracelets, rings and everything, with all their crystallized drops and clusters! It was a sudden opening of the gates of fairyland. To go to London would have been happiness enough, but to go so like an enchanted princess in all her enchanted finery was more than she could realize. A colour as brilliant as the scarlet in Lady Throckmorton's frayed palm leaf shawl flew to her cheeks. She fairly clapped her hands in unconscious ecstasy. "Oh, Pam!" she cried, with pathetic gratitude. "How good you are! How good! How good! I can't believe it, I really can't, and I will take such care of them, such care of everything. You shall see the dresses are not even crushed. I will be so careful." And then she ended with another little shower of impulsive caresses. But it was late by this time, and with her usual forethought, a forethought which no enthusiasm could make her forget, Pamela sent her back to bed. She would be too tired to sew to morrow, she said, prudently, and there was plenty of hard work to be done. So, with a timid farewell kiss, Theo went to her room, and in opening her door awakened Joanna and Ellen, who sat up in bed, dimly conscious of a white figure wrapped in their august relative's shawl, and bearing a candle to light up scarlet cheeks, and inconsistent eyes, and tangled black hair. "I'm going to London," the voice pertaining to this startling figure broke out. "Joanna and Ellen, do you hear? I'm going to London, to Lady Throckmorton's." Joanna rubbed her eyes sleepily. "Oh, yes," she said, not too amiably by any means. "Of course you are. I knew you would. You are everlastingly going somewhere, Theo, and Ellen and I stay at home, as usual. Lady Throckmorton will never invite us, I know. Where are your things going to come from?" "Pamela," was Theo's deprecating reply, "they are the things that belong to her wedding outfit. She never wore them after Mr. Brunewald died, you know, Joanna, and she is going to lend them to me." "Let us go to sleep, Ellen," Joanna grumbled, drowsily. "We know all about it now. It's just like Pam, with her partiality. She never offered to lend them to us, and we have wanted them times and times worse than ever Theo does now." And then Theo went to bed also, but did not sleep, of course. Only lay with eyes wide open to the darkness, as any other girl would have done, thinking excitedly of Pamela's generous gifts, and of Lady Throckmorton, and, perhaps, more than once the strange chance which had brought to light again the wedding day that was never more than the sad ghost of a wedding, and the bridal gifts that had come to the bride from a dead hand. End of Part 2, Chapter 1.